We are live, Vols fans, for our second show.
Good afternoon, Vols fans.
We've introduced ourselves. I'm young Brandon. That's the super genius
Wiley.
I'll figure this out one day.
And we are the brothers in Vols, and we bring to you this week the Rocky Top Report, brought to you by the Field of Streams Podcasting Network.
Absolutely.
And we come to you a weekend after the Bama beatdown. The smashing of the yellow hammer on our upset dreams.
I hate that, by the way.
Yeah.
Hate it. Ramma jamma yellow hammer.
Oh, hey, let me tell you something. One of my fondest memories was that 98 Bama game. After the game was over, we stayed there and we sang Ramma Jamma for a solid hour. It was fan-flippin-tastic.
It's just so ignorant, Bama fans. I don't understand.
It could have been a lot worse. We didn't cover.
No,
we scored about the amount of points I thought we would. I thought we might hit 20, but 17 was about right.
I was thinking maybe 14. But once again, JG, he did his thing under the threat, I think, of losing his spot as a starting quarterback. I mean, that's time and time again. Once he's threatened by all this, he will perform somehow. And I can't say he did a good job.
Yeah, he ball security wise, it was miles better than what Kentucky. The only turnover was that fumble where Eric Gray dropped the ball and Bama picked up in the third quarter for a touchdown. The O-line actually did a decent job, and
they did all right. They did all right.
Bama did have 8 tackles for loss in the game, but they didn't have a sack, which I think says a lot right there.
That was surprising. Surprise. So let's go from Jump Street, if you will, here. So not the first thing that happened, but one of the first things that happened, what I was contacted about was the lovely chant of bullshit that came from the audience. Now, surely you picked that up.
Yes.
I mean, I couldn't help but laugh at that. Some people were in an uproar, and it's not the best look. It ain't the best sportsmanship, but still kind of funny that a major network would be silly enough to get over by people that would say that sort of thing.
And look, the fan base has changed with society. They're not nearly as patient as they used to be. I mean, they gave majors 8 years to be successful. 8 years. He starts in 77. He does not win the SEC until 85. Now, granted, I will grant you, it turned out that we've had some charlatans. The Rocky Top, what I call the Rocky Top prophecy, turned out to be false. Turns out having a coach that was half bear and the other half bear, the other half cat, didn't turn out to be such a good thing. I thought it was awesome at the time.
As did I. But once you start saying things about, I mean, even though, okay, I'll back up on this and you'll hear the sound of the beeping. I don't think moral victories go too far in sports.
No.
However, I will say that the way the Vols played against Alabama and didn't make as many mistakes, and we actually have wide receivers on the team
Yeah.
I think there was a slight moral victory.
Well, it was good to see Jalen Hyatt show up the way he did. He played. He did have. He was phenomenal.
Him and Palmer.
Yeah. I mean, it just.
Now we got to work on a quarterback that's a young man and not.
Yeah.
It
just goes to show you can make improvements and still get your ass beat. I mean, it happens. I mean, there were certain things about this game that were disappointing. I mean, To'o Henry, he just didn't have it last week. He only had 2 tackles. Had 2 tackles. Didn't really get in on anything. Trayvon Flowers had another good game. I think he finished with 8 solo.
Yeah.
The secondary tackled pretty well.
Okay, let's get to the secondary. And I got a young nephew. Well, I got 2 young nephews. One that's 12 and
replace a guy that's 140 yards a game, and there's nobody like him. There's nobody like him. Every time he catches the ball, guys, it's a 20.
What is that?
I don't know.
Reception. That's hard to replace those kind of stats.
Hold on.
Like you mentioned, look, they've got the guy in the play caller. He can design plays for other guys. Devontae Smith was a number.
For some reason, ESPN decided to kick on.
All right.
Sorry about that. We didn't mean to air anything that was copyrighted by another company.
We good enough to be on that other channel, except we don't argue. We're Southern gentlemen.
Well, secondary-wise, we still can't cover the slot.
No.
I think outside, I think we're good. I think we're pretty much fast enough to be able to at least stick with guys. But, I mean, covering the slot is a lot your short and intermediate guys. I mean, your linebackers have to be there. You got to get a pass rush, which we didn't. And it's on the opposing quarterback. Take that 3-step drop and just unload it. And if you're not getting anybody in his face.
Hey, look, Joe Montana, baby. I'm gonna be a Joe Montana fan for life.
Yeah, I don't care if you've got Deion Sanders and Ronnie Lott in your secondary. Ain't no way you're gonna cover the slant. The quarterback's getting away the ball in less than 3 steps. And 3 steps, it's not gonna happen. But
what I was getting to, the Charles Tillman peanut punch. Like I said, my nephew, he started really getting into football, heavier than he was and playing Madden and stuff. And, they've got the older players on there and this and that. And he was telling me, he was like, yeah, there's this thing called the peanut punch where you punch the football. And to be perfectly honest, hell, it's just fun to say.
Yeah.
But on a few of those catches, our secondary was trying to strip that ball, and I was like, peanut punch, peanut punch, peanut. See, I'll bring it around full circle.
Yeah, I couldn't have done that chanting around my late father. He'd have been like, what'd you say? What? What?
Punch his peanut, son. Punch that peanut.
Yeah, that one.
To your other point, Bama's quarterback, I hope y'all were watching. We did get him a couple of times, and under pressure, he did not look good. Under enough pressure, of course, nobody looks good, but he had some troublesome moments there when they didn't necessarily get to him. They get a sack or anything, but they did enough pressure, and he was screwing up out there.
I think for part of the first half, or especially going late first half, second half, they were going to second half. They got a little bit out of sync, but I think you're right. I mean, I still say they didn't do enough to get into his face, but I mean, in those moments where they did, push his guys back, he did, seem like he was kind of uncomfortable. I mean, that's the knock on Mac Jones is the scouting report is 3 stars, cannon for an arm, cannot cannot move.
Yeah.
And I mean, for right now, it's working. He gets up against the Ohio State and Clemson later on in the year. We'll see. That may end up coming back to haunt him in the end if he can get up against some really quick rush ins like you see like you'll see from Clemson, like you'll see from Ohio State. I'm honestly amazed Georgia didn't do a better job than they did. But
yeah, I'm looking at the stats here
season yet, so
with our game. And those are just some images.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe never mind on that one.
Anyway.
The stats were what they were. They beat us.
I mean, Garantano threw for like 152. Most of those to Jalen Hyatt, that one touchdown to
some of those guys like Hyatt made that great catch.
Yep.
Palmer got that TD.
Yeah.
And those were like back to back, right around 27-yard catches. I mean,
it looked like that we had that. It gave us hope. Those were hope spots. For you fans out there, we call those hope spots. I think Bama's secondary got exposed a little bit because I mean especially that Jordan Palmer touchdown that was on Patrick Surtain Jr. And Garantano went after him. He just he's like flat out said, "I'm throwing it up.
Let's go
get it, sunshine, if you can." And we just we are more physical. We got there. He put the ball in the right position. We were able to bring it down for a touchdown. So I know other coaches are going to be looking at it. I know LSU's looking at it. I know Coach Ogeron's looking at that. I know Gus Malzahn's looking at that. Kevin Steele is definitely looking at that. Try to figure out, well, I would say Kevin Steele, he's defensive coordinator, but Coach, Malzahn's looking at that. They're trying to figure out why, or how they can exploit that kind of thing, because obviously there's something there that that's people want to see. I mean, and in the week before, Ole Miss did a lot of the same thing. I mean, they exposed a lot of holes in the defense, and it's going to get to the point where you're going to get in front of somebody that you're not going to be able to match touchdown for touchdown, because that defense is going to shut you down.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it would not surprise me to see Bama go ahead and cruise on through the rest of the SEC, get to the playoffs, and drop a first round game because they haven't. I mean, because that somebody just exposes the lack of what they have, especially in that secondary.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying those guys are bad. I'm not saying those guys are bad players, not by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, they're Patrick Surtain.
No, Bama gets all the recruits.
I mean, but for whatever reason, they're not playing up to what the normal Saban standard is.
Right. And I think they had the week off this week, did they not?
Yeah, it's us and them. They have
what I thought.
And I think they have LSU the next week.
I believe so.
I don't have schedule in front of me, but
one thing about that was what I was thinking was, he's going to be retooling during this break, and they're going to have to, depending on how these playoffs and whatever. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But certainly not the unstoppable force that they have been in years past.
So, YB,
they scored a ton of points. But
Since our boys are going into a bye week. What are some things that you think that they need to work on going forward to be ready for Arkansas's next? Right.
We got
a Fayetteville next.
Man, I'm still thinking they run that option.
It would be.
You got these 2 wide receivers now that have kind of shown their stuff. With them running slants across the field and stuff, and then you got these 2 running backs, I think you've got a pretty good setup where you can move down the field.
Maybe go more towards a more West Coast short passing type of.
I think so. Yeah. Who were they talking about the other night? I forget it, but if they can keep the ball, there's more than one way. It ain't always going to be smash mouth football, especially if you can't make it 3 yards of play.
I honestly look at it like this. You got to work on pass rush. You got to figure out.
Oh yeah, no, please
get some heat. I mean, Phil Hot Dogs cannot be given free reign to run around that backfield and throw to whoever he wants. We got to get some pressure. We got to figure out a way to get number 2 freed up so he can feel more comfortable back in the pocket, throwing the ball a little bit, getting around. Like I said, maybe going more towards those little dink and dunk routes.
Yeah.
It worked. It worked for Missouri.
That it did.
Yes, it did. Especially against Kentucky. If you look at those stats, time of possession was 3-1 Missouri, and all they were doing short.
That's the game I was thinking of, where they just
that entire game
slowly but surely get it down that field. W is a W.
I mean, the 2, Eric Gray has been other than the fumble against Alabama. Eric Gray has been the offensive MVP so far.
Right.
Which I thought he would be. I mean, Ty Chandler's a good back, but he doesn't have the. He's not as fast. He's not as elusive as Eric Gray.
Get down there on the 3-yard line and punch it in, guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's like I said, it's tied between the tackles and Eric on the edge. We got to figure out a way to cover the slant. The secondary, I mean, Trayvon Flowers has been the best player other than Toto on the defense. Has been Trayvon Flowers. He's got the most tackles. He does a good job in his coverages. Alontae Taylor has played pretty well. He's been hurt. It was nice to see him back on the field. He had a couple of tackles against Alabama.
Well, Barron and McCullen did very well, I thought, in that Alabama game.
Yeah, it's a lot easier from a standpoint, at least in my experience from what I've seen, to play defense as a freshman. In terms of what is asked of you, as opposed to say quarterback, which is why we haven't seen Harrison.
Right. And that spills over in the NFL. Jadeveon Clowney, for instance. I'm going to take him fresh out of college as opposed to, 7 years in?
I mean, well, the guys who've just wrecked defenses or wrecked offenses straight out of college. The Watts, the Bosas. It's just look at how Minka Fitzpatrick's doing in that secondary for Pittsburgh. Still say they got their ass whooped in the second half of that Titans game, but that's a different story. But we definitely, the things we can tighten up in the secondary, helping on the inside coverages with the slants, not getting beat on the inside. there was one play against Georgia. To'o just absolutely got killed on an inside route. The guy just went straight. Guy went straight up the field on a post, went right around, and it wasn't that Henry bid on anything. It's just he looked one way. He looked the wrong way, and the guy was by him. He got beat on the inside, which for a linebacker in coverage, that gets you benched. Anybody else, you're sitting out the next day.
You can't make those kind of.
Yeah.
Those are game changing mistakes.
And while the game was it was first half, so it was pretty much still in question at that point. But still, it doesn't help. Kicking, Samaglia is getting a little bit better. He hasn't missed an extra point, but he's still pretty inconsistent on his PATs. Paxton Brooks had a horrible game against Kentucky. Could not get anything deep. I mean, had a couple of shanks. Was a little better against Alabama. I don't know what the averages are, but he's. Yeah. I mean, if we're going to rely that heavily on our defense, we got to have our punter. We got to have some coffin corners.
Oh yeah. I
mean, it's gonna become an absolute necessity.
That is the story. If you're a defensive team, you've got to get your kicking straight.
And overall, just figure out what your identity is. I think they're kind of losing their way about what they are. The whole over Brumbaugh being fired. I just think it's luckily it hasn't really seemed to damage us in recruiting because Brumbaugh is a good recruiter.
Yeah.
So hopefully that that doesn't change. But they've got to figure out. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is what we do well. We're going to start here and build on it. So, Brandon, do we want to start talking about? We're about a little over 22 minutes in. Do we want to start talking about picks or?
Well, let's go ahead and we can talk about some picks.
Okay.
I'm gonna pull up our SEC schedule.
I know we've got Missouri, Florida, Kentucky, Georgia. Let's see, LSU and Mississippi State. I have them all written down.
Let me see here. I'll help us out. I had this down so well the other day.
There it is.
There it is.
Okay. So we got Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Auburn, Ole Miss, Vandy, Mississippi State, Alabama, Arkansas, A&M, and Missouri, Florida. So Alabama isn't off. Actually, we thought they were off. They're playing Mississippi State. Well, let's start with the.
They might as well be off.
Let's start with the more obvious one. Vanderbilt is going into Oxford. I'm trying to pull up my point spreads. And it's not going to come up. Okay. I'm trying to pull up my point spreads. The location where I am doesn't like searches, so I have to turn my Wi-Fi off.
I think I got our point spreads right there.
Oh, there you go. Good. All right. So Ole Miss, Vandy's going into Ole Miss. Lane 16.5. Yeah, that's not enough. I think Ole Miss wins that one by 3 touchdowns pretty easily. Vandy cannot score.
I was having a conversation with someone who bet frequently on sports, and Vanderbilt was once given 48 points. He was like, well, obviously I'm going to take them. My goodness, they can win. Well, They didn't cover. They didn't score a touchdown in that game.
Well, Louis Grisard died in the spring of 1994. I was on spring break at the time, and the previous October, November, somewhere, I think it was that. It might have been it was October. It had to be late October, early November. Georgia came to town. It was his last birthday weekend. He had a gig in Nashville. He was going to come to town and watch his beloved Bulldogs whoop up on Vandy. So he called his bookie and said, "Give me Georgia and the points." Vandy won like 38-20. It was brutal. The only SEC game Vandy won that year too.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure about that. Pretty sure about that.
I'm telling. There's a lot to say when there's a rivalry or you don't have anything to lose on the line.
But Vandy's not been able to score. I think Ole Miss clear 16 and a half without breaking a sweat.
Yeah.
What's your opinion? You compare?
I would take Ole Miss. Yeah. I think, unfortunately, I don't like he who shall be unnamed.
The train conductor?
But I think he's got this one.
We can call him the train conductor. Let's see. Second most obvious game is the Bulldoggies of Mississippi State going into Tuscaloosa to face Alabama. I will quote Mitch all day when I say there are not enough points to put a minus in front of. And this game keep me from picking Alabama. Take Bama in the 31. If it's less than 35, I will be extremely surprised.
Who do you? Well, I don't know enough about Alabama. With their player that got injured, I wonder who's going to step into that role. Of course, with their recruiting, it's next
man up. It's pick a card, any card. It's all they're all going to come out, aces. Let's see, Georgia goes into Kentucky. They're a 15 and a half point favorite. I think that
Kentucky defense is good.
Yeah, Kentucky. I think Kentucky covers there. Georgia's going to win the game, but I think Kentucky.
I would agree on that.
Kentucky keeps the 2 touchdowns. LSU and Auburn. That one
I would never bet on.
If
who wants it more?
If TJ, the freshman sensation, plays the way he did against South Carolina, I think LSU wins outright. I'd probably go LSU plus 3. I think is probably a good bet. I think that's a touchdown victory for LSU.
Yeah.
Arkansas is going to College Station. It's going to depend on
interesting.
A lot of things. Arkansas's defense, offensively, Arkansas has been pretty good. They've controlled. Felipe Franks has done a good job of not throwing interceptions.
Yeah, he's been good. That kid's been good.
Going into last weekend, he had like 730 yards passing. Against only two interceptions. So I think. As long as Coach Sam doesn't feed his offensive lineman that day and they're good and angry and hungry, I think they'll chew up some yards and make it interesting. But at Kyle Field, A&M 12 and a half. I think A&M wins. I'm gonna say it's
like a lot of points.
I'm gonna say it's a 10-point game. I think it's close. I think Arkansas keeps it close until the fourth quarter, and then A&M finds a way to pull it out. I say that one's going to be a 10-point game. I think 12 I think 2 scores is too much there. Arkansas. Sam Pittman's doing a much better job than people are giving him credit for. Missouri goes into the swamp to play Florida. I know what I'd like.
Yeah. If they can play keep away like they did the other day, it's going to be a real tough game.
Yeah, if they can,
what's the line on that game? A lot of
people, including our colleagues from the stream last night, are picking Missouri to finish third in the East. That's not a bad pick.
They give it 13.
I'll try to fix this up. Let me lean forward a little bit. There, it's better. I think, is Kyle Trask going to throw more lollipops out there, and can Missouri's secondary ball hawk him a little bit to make it a little bit harder for them to score? I don't know. 13 points going into Florida. The other thing is Florida had not practiced since the
right.
5th? So
that whole mess.
There's gonna be a rust factor there. So I'm gonna say Florida's gonna win, but they're gonna be biting their nails to the quick on that one. It's gonna be awful.
Yeah, I don't think they've got 13 on Missouri, especially if they can play keep away.
Yeah.
Now, if Missouri tries some other game plan for some other reason, they can't get the job done doing it that way, that hold a ball game.
I think you have to stick with what works. I mean, especially if you can do it and they know it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just like it ain't bragging. It ain't bragging, if you can back it up.
Right.
So that's the kind of way I look at it. Well, YB, we are 31 minutes into this thing. You had something else that you had mentioned off air that you wanted to bring up and get my opinion on that I was not aware of. So hit me with it.
Couple things. So let's go with this. Share this page of they had a lot to say about Greg Schiano after our loss to Alabama. They being the Twitterverse. You can look at some of these. Basically, you know what happened with Greg Schiano. If you would like to fill the people in, you may.
Greg Schiano, a previous administration had offered Greg Schiano when he was an assistant at Ohio State. He was defensive coordinator at Ohio State, the head coaching job at the University of Tennessee. Schiano was an assistant, a defensive assistant at Penn State, while Jerry Sandusky was there as a defensive coordinator, and did not speak out against Sandusky when the time came, and he got tarred with that brush, whether it was fairly or unfairly. When the offer was made public, the students in campus, especially on campus, revolted, and they pulled the offer.
All right. So, how did you feel about that? I've got my opinion. I'll let you share yours first.
I think Schiano's a good coach. I think that it was unfair that, should he have said something? Probably. But I think that he guys, refs for the football game just showed up. Oh, we're good. We're almost done. I think it's unfairly got tarred with that brush.
Bad call.
Do I think Schiano was necessarily a good fit for Tennessee? Probably not, but that doesn't mean he wasn't worthy of consideration for the job. Schiano, his reputation is that Schiano is a dictator. He's a taskmaster. He does not allow for dissension. That's what ultimately doomed him when he was in the pros at Tampa Bay. His players revolted against him because they wouldn't put up with his rules. That being said, like I said, I don't necessarily know if he was the best fit. I think he's a good coach. I do. Do I think he's a better coach than Jerry Pruitt? Like, first of all, Michigan State is not Alabama.
Exactly.
The Big Ten, so don't try to feed me that line of crap. I mean, did Rutgers play a good game? Yes. But Michigan State is going through a coaching change. They went through a coaching change. Mel Turner's still figuring out what kind of program he's going to have there. And so any kind of program in that transition is going to be, I mean, they're going to be ripe for those kinds of losses. Now Schiano had been successful at Rutgers before. He had a track record there, so we knew it was probably a matter of time before he got the program up and going again. So it's not a huge surprise,
right?
If Rutgers goes to Happy Valley, or if they go to Columbus, or they go to Ann Arbor, it's not going to be it's going to be a different story.
Just preposterous to all these people saying Schiano is greater than Pruitt. None of this.
It's a snap gut reaction. People who are ticked off because of the way the game went down. I mean, I don't see how anybody could be that serious with that comparison.
Right.
It doesn't work for me.
Yeah, just knee jerk reaction.
Oh yeah.
Haters. All right, so I'm going to introduce a new segment on our show here. And it's called Weird Vols Item of the Week. And this should be our item. That is my Facebook page.
Vols fan tape.
Now, I want to encourage anyone watching this to send me pics or, video, as long as it's PG-13 is our field of stream.
I got to be honest with you, man. This is kind of a letdown. I was kind of hoping it was athletic tape.
It's a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of underwhelming. I mean, is it cool? Is it kitschy? Is it stupid? It's all of those things. But I was kind of hoping it was athletic tape because my sister, the infamous I'll call her by her nickname Ain't Silly, went to Vanderbilt. She was a trainer for Vanderbilt. She worked for both she worked for the staffs of both Watson Brown and Jerry DiNardo. And so my mother had I don't know who has it now, but it's framed. My parents went to for some reason this is a game I couldn't go to, but we used to get free tickets to home games at Vanderbilt. She'd leave us tickets. If Tennessee wasn't playing, we weren't going to Knoxville, we'd go to Nashville, watch Vanderbilt play. And at one point they showed up in the training room and to talk to her before a game. How they got in the training room before a game, I don't know, but they did. And Dad was talking smack, of course, being the Tennessee fan that he is. And so Dad asked her, Dad always talked about, all right, before a football game, you got your ankles taped. You ready to go? Got strapped on? Let's go. And so she taped Dad's ankles. And then she signed the tape and said, dedicated to my two favorite tuttas. Now, I will not expand that acronym given the company I'm in now and embarrass my school any further than I've already done. By involving myself.
Let me explain what went through my head when I took a picture of this, and maybe that'll make it a little weird.
Okay.
I looked at this tape, and knowing the SEC rivalry, I just thought of the people that would see this that were Bama fans and Georgia fans and, God forbid, Florida fans. And they would, I ain't using that tape, son. There is no way out of this office. Yeah. So not as weird as it could be. But like I said, I encourage people to send us pictures. You know, you're around the Southeast, you see some weird Tennessee thing, go for it. I'll give you a shout out on here.
Yep.
All right. That's this show.
We'll wrap. We want to thank everybody for watching. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Rocky Top Report here on the Field of Streams podcasting network. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, more weird items for Brandon to take a look at and decide, if they're worthy of posting, and hopefully, and I said this last week, we couldn't get it together this week. We'll have some words of wisdom from a Vols legend.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna cut it loose, and we will catch y'all on the flip side. Have a good weekend.
All right, go Vols, VFL baby.